Hi, welcome back for part 2 of Benchmark 3 on the circulatory system. If you have not yet watched part 1 on blood flow through the body and the parts of the heart, please go back and watch that video right now because none of the rest of this is going to make sense if you haven't. So I actually like to start with some review, and you can pause this and go back and look at your coloring sheet, or you can go back to the slides and check for the answers. But let's talk a little bit about the heart and do some review. So you should be able to locate valves on your heart diagram. There are several valves throughout the body. They're very large valves that are in the main chambers of the heart. We have tricuspid valve, mitral valve. We have valves in our veins and arteries. A fun fact to know about those are that they're one way and they prevent backflow of blood into the heart, and they're meant to seal off chambers. However, people do have issues excuse me, with valves. Heart murmurs are often due to malfunctioning valves. Sometimes the doctor can hear a malfunctioning valve with a stethoscope, or if you've ever heard people have holes in their heart, sometimes they have issues with valves. Sometimes they can actually have a hole between the chamber walls. So valves are really, really important, but they can malfunction and sometimes require repair. People can get valve replacements. One of my children, when they were born, had a mitral valve prolapse, and the valve kind of just turned inside out, and then it flipped and worked its way back to normal, but they can be very dangerous if not fixed. Another fun fact is that the left ventricle cardiac muscle is 3 times thicker than the right side. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. The left ventricle needs a ton of power to create enough blood pressure to get the blood to flow throughout the entire body. So it's that one side of your heart that squeezes that really allows blood to flow all the way to your brain down to your little baby toe. It's really important. You guys have probably had someone take your pulse before. Probably you've had your blood pressure taken, and that can be a measurement of how healthy your heart is. Your pulse is just a measurement of heartbeats per minute, and your heart beating is really just the heart muscle contracting. Blood pressure is the force of the blood pushing on your blood vessel walls. So there's pressure in veins and arteries, and there's really 2 phases of a heartbeat. You've got blood flowing in and blood flowing out. And so there's 2 numbers with a blood pressure. There's the systemic and diastolic, and you can learn more about that if you're interested by just doing a quick Google search. Normal pulse for a person who's at rest, anywhere between 60 and 100 beats per minute. And the normal blood pressure for adults, and this does change from time to time. There's always new guidelines from the American Heart Association, but generally 120 over 80 is normal. That's the pressure during a beat and in between beats. So the top number is during the compression of your heart, and then in between is when it's released. Okay, here are some awesome crash course videos. The heart ones are really great. The blood vessel ones are okay, and then the blood, which is the topic for today, are also pretty neat as well. And you guys know I love crash course videos. So let's go through this warm up together. You can pause and look for the answers on your worksheet. Okay, which chamber of the heart receives deoxygenated blood from the body? Go ahead and pause and look for that answer. Which chamber of the heart receives deoxygenated blood from the body? Okay, let's go back. I should just keep this one open. Okay, it's going to be the right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the body. Okay, number 2, which chamber of the heart sends deoxygenated blood to the lungs? Pause and go look it up. Right ventricle, deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Number 3, which chamber of the heart receives oxygenated blood from the lungs? So freshly oxygenated blood from the lungs. Pause and go look it up. It's going to be your left atrium, receives from the pulmonary veins. And finally, which chamber of the heart sends oxygenated blood out to the body? And that's going to be the left ventricle. So that was a good little review for us. Today we're really going to focus on blood and how blood does its job. Our circulatory system, the heart, the lungs, the main components that we've talked about already are really just for transporting blood. But there's really a lot of cool things to know about blood and the components of blood. So we're going to take a little bit of time today and talk about that. So there's actually a lot of water in your blood, but there are two main components. We have 55% of your blood volume is made up of plasma, and that's just the liquid part of your blood. It carries everything. So the cells themselves, the blood cells themselves, nutrients and enzymes that are flowing through the circulatory system. The other 45% of blood volume is made up of these three components here. So A would be the red blood cells. B are platelets, which are mainly for clotting when you have an injury. And C are the variety of white blood cells that we have for our immunity. All right, so a little less than half of the volume of your blood is actually blood cells, or what we'd consider blood cells. A little more than half is considered plasma. Now, you might have heard of people donating blood and plasma. When you donate blood, you donate what they consider whole blood. So you're donating all of this component, and then they can actually take parts of that out. They do have plasma donation centers now that actually just take the plasma and return your blood cells to you. So you can actually donate plasma more frequently than you can donate blood. It takes your body a little bit longer to regenerate these blood cells and platelets than it does the plasma. So most of our water is in the plasma. All right, so blood donation is really, really important. Some people get really grossed out by blood donation and they think it's kind of nasty, but it's actually one of the coolest things you can do, because one visit to a blood bank can actually save up to 3 people's lives. And during this coronavirus outbreak, some blood banks have become critically low. There haven't been people going out to donate blood, and people are still having emergencies where they need blood. So what does blood get used for? Why would somebody need blood? Well, a large portion of people who receive blood through a blood transfusion are people who have cancer or other types of blood diseases. So people who have leukemia may need blood transfusions, people who have sickle cell anemia, things like that. Another portion are people who are anemic, which means that they don't carry enough iron in their blood. Some people will need blood during surgery, other medical issues with the heart, liver, and kidney, orthopedic. Obstetrics is maternity ward type stuff. So if a mother loses too much blood during childbirth, she may need a blood transfusion. And it's only 2% of people in really bad accidents or trauma that need blood. A lot of times people think of people needing blood because they, had a really bad cut and they bled out. It's not that common. It's more for people who have cancer and blood diseases. But people need blood, and you never know when you're going to need it. And it's important for blood banks to keep a good supply. You can actually start giving blood when you're 16, and you have to have a parent consent. So sometimes they'll do blood drives at the high school. Up until you're 65 years old, there are some requirements. They screen you before you actually get to the table to donate your blood. You have to be healthy and have a healthy weight, and you have to make sure that your iron is at a good level, and that giving blood isn't going to put you in a bad situation. There are a lot of blood types, and blood typing is based on the proteins that you carry on your blood cells. And some types of blood can be used for others, and some types of blood can only be used for certain people. So this is a reason why it's really, really important for blood banks to have a good variety. The most common types of blood are A positive and O positive. So they have A antigens and O has none. B positive is the third most common, and then we have some more obscure types. Now, O negative is a really important blood type. O negative does not have any antigens on it, and so anybody who needs blood can receive O negative blood. It's called the universal donor. Somebody who's O negative, however, can only receive O negative blood. And so you have to have a match for people receiving blood. So if you show up at the hospital and you have O negative blood and you've been in an accident and you need blood, the only type of blood you can get is O negative. Receiving the wrong kind of blood is pretty traumatic. You can actually develop blood clots. Your body sees it as invasive and tries to get rid of it. And so you have to match up the correct blood type with the correct person. So how about some fun facts about blood? Right now in your body, 150 red blood cells are in 1 ounce of blood. Okay, that's a lot. If you looked at our blood under the microscope back in the cell project, you probably noticed that we couldn't really see the blood cells, which are in my background here, until you were on high power, so 400 times magnification. And even then, it was really hard to see. Your body is constantly renewing blood. You can donate blood, I think it's every 3 months, and your body is pretty efficient about making new blood. You can make 17 million red blood cells in a single second, in a snap. And it's very efficient travel throughout the body, only between 20 and 60 seconds for a single drop of blood to make a full trip from the heart to the body and back to the heart again. Now, why the difference in time? I'm sure you've experienced times when you've exercised and your heart is just beating right out of your chest. When your heart rate's up, your blood pressure's up, your pulse is up, and blood's traveling really quick. This was just from the blood type diagram in the previous slide. O positive blood is the most common, 39% of the population. AB is the rarest, it's only 0.5%. Blood donations, like I said, are really, really important. You can donate 1 pint a day, 1 pint per person, and they use 32,000 pints of blood in the US every day. And it does have an expiration. It doesn't last forever, but it's one of those things that you just have to have it on hand whenever you can. So, if you'd like to know more about blood, I highly suggest watching these videos from Crash Course. They're pretty interesting. I really could talk forever and ever about blood typing. It's pretty cool. Once you donate blood, they'll send you a card and it has your blood type. And it's just something that's good to know, and it's also good to do for humanity. You know, donating blood is an excellent thing to do. And they'll send you pins and recognition when you get to, my brother's donated a few gallons of blood in his lifetime. So good thing to do. I will be back for a couple more videos this week. We'll be talking about hands-only CPR, and then we'll get to the respiratory, which is the lungs, and a little bit about the excretory system later in the week. See you then.